Kira had always felt the pull of Paradiso like a soft hum under her skin. Most people would find the planet's jagged cliffs, obsidian crags, and molten vents strange, but to her, they were a living, breathing ecosystem full of secrets waiting to be discovered. The hum was louder today, and it vibrated through her chest as she got closer to the cliffs where Lyric, the dragon she had become friends with, was said to be nesting. She always gasped when she saw Lyric for the first time. The dragon's scales sparkled with a metallic blue color, and in the sunlight, they moved like liquid sapphire. Her huge wings were tucked close to her sides as she moved over the rocky ground with surprising grace. Kira stopped for a moment, feeling the familiar tingle behind her eyes, the telepathic whisper that had become second nature over the past 2 years. "You're here," Lyric's thought echoed in her mind, soft but strong. "Yes, I'm here," Kira said without saying anything. The bond made her feel warm inside. It was strange how their thoughts were connected. Lyric could sense her presence, her plans, and even her feelings. And Kira could feel the dragon's moods, her curiosity, her anger, and sometimes, when the world was quiet enough, the intelligence behind her gaze. Kira tightened the straps on her pack and began to carefully climb up to the plateau, where Lyric and her partner, Orion, had claimed their territory. Lyric and Orion were different from most dragons on Paradiso, in that they had formed a partnership that confused xenobiologists. They had overlapping territories, shared hunting grounds, and a clear instinct to protect each other. Kira's research showed that her and her late father's early interactions with humans had an effect on how they acted socially. But she didn't know what the full effects were yet. She kept her eyes on the horizon as she climbed. She saw a faint glimmer, the sleek outline of a Federation scout drone hovering high above the valley. Kira's stomach felt tight. She had expected people to be interested, but not this much. The Federation often said they were for conservation, but the way they did things was more about control and containment. They didn't see dragons as living things with rights. They saw them as things to be looked at, cataloged, and sometimes used. Lyric's thought came back, this time with a sense of tension. Someone is watching us. "People I know," Kira said softly. She knew that her presence was different from that of the Federation. Lyric trusted her in a way that no scientist or bureaucrat in a sterile lab could. Even so, the warning made her heart race. The Federation might have seen the dragon's eggs. She pulled herself up and put her hand on the smooth stone of a ledge. The plateau opened up in front of her, showing off all of its volcanic beauty. Vents in the rock let out heat that mixed with the sharp smell of sulfur and dust that was full of minerals. Lyric waited in the middle of the plateau. She was beautiful. The sun made her scales shine, making a rainbow of blues and silvers. She made a low, resonant hum that Kira felt more than heard. It was like a heartbeat that echoed across the plateau. Orion was lying nearby, coiled up like a living shadow. His copper-colored scales absorbed the light, and his golden eyes carefully scanned the horizon. Kira got down on the ground slowly so as not to scare them. She had learned to move slowly and carefully, giving the dragons room. "Good morning," she said softly, sending calmness through the bond. "I'm here. I only bring respect." Lyric's eyes softened, and she let Kira come closer. The tip of her snout brushed against Kira's palm as a sign that she understood. Orion's eyes stayed on him, wary but not angry. The three beings a human and 2 dragons made, a strange scene that made people question what they thought they knew about predator and prey, scientist and subject. Are they ready to be looked at today? Dr. Soren Zhang, Kira's co-worker and fellow xenobiologist, asked from behind the ridge as she set up her portable monitoring equipment. There was both excitement and fear in her voice. Lyric is helpful, but Orion, I've never seen a Paradisian dragon act with such compassion toward another species. They're different, Kira said, never taking her eyes off the dragons. They've learned as much from us as we've learned from them. And the bond, it's not just about changing behavior. There is real understanding there. Dr. Zhang nodded and wrote down notes on her tablet. If only the Federation could see that, they'd see that this isn't about control. It's about living together. Kira frowned, and a feeling of frustration broke through the wonder of the moment. They won't see it that way until it's too late. They want a reason to take charge and explain why they are getting involved. Lyric moved, and her eyes narrowed toward the entrance to the valley, breaking her train of thought. Kira looked where she was looking and stopped. Another glint, this one bigger and moving with purpose, heavy. Mechanical Federation reconnaissance unit cutting through the air toward them. Kira whispered, "They're coming." She could feel Lyric's stress level rise. The dragon's protective instinct was strong. Orion's tail hit the ground, making sparks fly from the friction. "They are coming for our kids," Kira thought as she heard Lyric's warning. Dr. Zhang looked at her in shock. "Kira, what should we do?" Kira took a deep breath and let the telepathic bond lead her. She had one thing the Federation didn't have: trust. Lyric and Orion trusted her judgment. "We watch closely, but we stay between them and the young," she said. She and Lyric's eyes met. "Don't worry, they will do what I say." The Federation unit came down onto the plateau, looking sleek and powerful. Its metal hull shone, and cameras and sensors were scanning for movement. Kira stepped forward and stood between the dragons and the people who were coming toward them. She looked calm and in charge. She could feel Orion's muscles tense behind her, ready to fight, and Lyric's presence pressed against her mind like hot steel. The first person to step out was a woman scientist wearing a reinforced suit and a helmet that reflected the light from the volcano. She said, "Kira Anders." Her voice was louder than usual and had no emotion. "Move over. This is a legal research operation. We're here to get samples for research." Kira's jaw got tight. "Move over. These aren't samples. They are living things, and their eggs should be in the wild where their parents can take care of them." The scientist's face stayed the same. Federation protocol puts scientific observation ahead of personal moral judgments. The eggs will be kept safe for controlled incubation. Kira's heart sank, but she made herself stay calm. Lyric was shaken, and Orion's eyes were flashing amber to warn her. If they did anything, it would be a mess, and someone might get hurt. We shouldn't make them angry. Not yet. Kira raised her hands, palms up, as a sign of peace and a warning. The dragons will protect what is theirs. If you try to take it by force, you won't win. And both people and dragons will get hurt. The Federation scientist hesitated, as if he were thinking about it. Kira could feel the dragon's awareness, pushing into her mind a wave of trust and need. She looked at Lyric for a moment and sent him a clear message. "Protect your eggs. Please wait for my signal." Lyric's head dipped in acknowledgement, and the moment felt like it was frozen in time to species talking without words and knowing what was at stake. The plateau seemed to hold its breath as people and dragons faced off, both sides knowing that the next move could change the course of life on Paradiso. Kira looked at Dr. Zhang, whose eyes were wide with wonder. She whispered, "This is it. The bond isn't just emotional ... It's a bridge. It's the difference between knowing and destroying." The Federation scientist moved closer, her movements precise and mechanical. "Kira Anders, this is your last chance." Kira's eyes never left the spot. "And this is mine. Leave, or you will see what it really means to save a life." Nothing happened for a while. Lyric and Orion then moved in a subtle ripple of scales and wings, moving in sync but not attacking. They were ready. Kira could feel their raw, unyielding intention. The bond flowed through her, reminding her that she was part of something bigger, linked between human curiosity and dragon freedom. And in that moment, when her heart stopped, she knew she wouldn't give up. The Federation unit hovered over the plateau like a predator looking for food. Kira's heart raced, but she made herself breathe normally. Lyric and Orion were still tense behind her, but they didn't hit her yet because she told them not to. The dragons believed in her judgment, and that was her strongest weapon. Dr. Zhang whispered, "We can't let them take the eggs," and her fingers tightened around her tablet. "Those are the first dragon babies we've ever seen that were raised by people when they were young. If you take them out, the whole data set could be lost." Kira's mind was racing. The Federation had brought heavy-duty gear, not just tools for watching things, but also containment devices made for creatures much bigger than people. They were ready to take down even the biggest dragons. She instinctively put her hand on the smooth pendant around her neck, which was a small scale from Lyric that her father had given her years ago. It was a sign, a link, and a reminder of the bond that now gave her life meaning. Lyric's thought pushed into her mind. "You can't falter. You have to keep our young safe," Kira said. "I won't." She looked at the scientist who was coming. "Get away now. This is your last chance." The scientist stopped for a moment, his helmet shining in the sun. "Orders from the Federation are clear. You are being watched for disobedience." "The eggs will be safe." Kira's stomach turned, But she knew it was too late for calm negotiation. She looked over at Lyric. The dragon's wings moved as if they were ready to fly, and the scales sparkled like water in the sun. Orion crouched low, his muscles tense, and his eyes were like molten gold on the humans. Now, Kira signaled, sending a thought that was as clear as speech: keep the kids safe, get going. Lyric shot up into the sky with a sudden, smooth motion, her wings cutting through the air with a loud roar. Orion came next, making a downdraft that sent volcanic dust and debris flying across the plateau. Kira could feel the stone vibrating beneath her feet, a warning rumble from creatures whose strength was greater than any weapon made by humans. Get back, Kira yelled as she ran between the Federation team and the dragon's nest. Dr. Jang and the others rushed to hide behind rocks, yelling directions to each other. The Federation staff acted right away, raising specialized tranquilizer launchers. But the dragons weren't trying to hurt anyone, they were protecting. Lyric's roar echoed across the plateau and bounced off the cliffs. It was such a pure and powerful sound that it made Kira's chest ache with pride. Orion let out a controlled burst of flame that spread out without touching a single person. It was a warning, and they understood it perfectly. Don't come near. Kira thought about the bond, and then thought about the dragons. You're safe. Only protect, don't hurt. Her mind reached into Lyric's and Orion's minds, forming a bridge between human understanding and dragon instinct. She slowly felt the tension ease, as if a coiled power was being held back by trust and respect. The Federation scientist hesitated, clearly taken aback by how well everyone worked together and how smart they were. Deploy containment nets, she yelled. But even as her team got them ready, Lyric and Orion changed positions, moving their bodies with such precision that it seemed like they were using strategy and foresight instead of just instinct. Kira's eyes quickly moved to the nest, where the eggs were resting and warming up in the heat of volcanic vents. She felt a strong urge to protect that burned behind her eyes. The Federation would ruin the fragile balance they had worked so hard to document if they got their hands on the eggs. The dragons would lose faith in you. Kira took a deep breath and stepped forward, raising both arms in a sign of power. I told you to back off, she yelled. Her voice had not only human strength, but also the power that came from her bond with Lyric and Orion. You can't take what's theirs. The humans faltered because they were scared by how smart and coordinated the beings they thought were lower than them were. The plateau hung between the two species for a heartbeat, with human fear and dragon power colliding in a silent standoff. Then there was movement. The lead scientist turned on a communication device, and her voice echoed across the plateau. This is Dr. Powell from the Federation Science Division. You must stop what you're doing and let the eggs be collected. Resistance will be seen as hostile. Kira's jaw got tight. Powell had always been very careful, calculating, and obsessed with having power. But she didn't realize how strong the bond was, how it went against rules and orders. Kira yelled back, "We don't follow your orders. These are not samples, they are family." Lyric bent down and grabbed the nearest egg with surprising care in her claws. Orion copied her movements and stood between the dragon and the people as a shield. Kira felt the unborn dragon's awareness rise, a flickering of consciousness as they sensed both danger and safety at the same time. Dr. Jang whispered to herself, a mix of fear and awe. I've never seen dragons act this smart before. Work together to defend themselves and talk to each other. It's as if they know what we believe and what we want. Kira said, they do, looking at Orion. But it's not just about understanding, it's a partnership. We have to act in a way that shows we trust them. The Federation team moved forward slowly, ready with nets and tranquilizers. Kira's stomach hurt. She could either step aside and let them take the eggs, or she could risk making the fight worse. She thought, we can't let them down, not right now. She took a deep breath and turned on a small device on her belt. It was a signal transmitter that she and Jackson had built to make a temporary holographic barrier. It appeared between the humans and the dragons, warping their vision and giving them a few extra seconds. The people from the Federation stopped, and their movements showed that they weren't sure what to do. The transmitter made Kira's voice louder, and it echoed across the plateau. You don't belong here. These dragons are alive, smart, and their babies should live in the wild. Step back, or you'll have to deal with things you aren't ready for. Orion roared back, his voice echoing through the cliffs in response to Kira's command. Lyric's wings beat the air, lifting her higher, with her eggs safe and her presence powerful and beautiful. The humans paused, which was the first sign of trouble in their coordinated attack. Dr. Powell's face came through her visor, and every line of her body showed how angry she was. Anders, this is insubordination. You're not following orders. Orders don't give you the right to break trust, Kira said. Not between species, not between life that has chosen to live freely. The plateau was full of unspoken threats, and the air was thick with the possibility of chaos. Kira could feel the dragon's energy pulsing under her hands as she focused on the bond, giving it more power and patience. We are all standing on this ground, strong, calm, and careful. After that, the people slowly started to back off. Their resolve and the dragon's presence making them weak. Dr. Powell yelled orders, but her team was too slow to follow them, which ruined the flow. Kira kept an eye on Lyric and Orion, telling them to stay on the defensive but not attack. Finally, the Federation unit broke off and moved back to the edge of the plateau. Kira let out a breath, and a wave of relief washed over her. Lyric landed next to her with grace, her eggs still safe. Kira could feel her hum of happiness in her chest. Orion lowered his wings and looked at her with quiet understanding, his eyes softening. Dr. Zhang let out a sigh and cleaned the soot and dust off her tools. That was amazing. I didn't think people could take on a Federation unit like that. But you and the dragons, Kira smiled, even though she was tired. It wasn't just me, it was faith. It was a bond. I trust them, and they trust me. That's what keeps these eggs safe. The plateau became an uneasy calm, with volcanic vents hissing softly, and the smell of sulfur mixing with the cool mountain air. Kira watched the dragons. They were always on guard, but they were sure of her. She knew this was just the start. The Federation wouldn't give up easily, but at least the eggs were safe and the dragons weren't broken. Kira could feel the bond thrum through her, both a promise and a warning. The fight to protect life and respect freedom had only just begun. She would stay on the line between the human and dragon worlds until the end. The first light of Paradiso's 2 suns shone across the obsidian range, making long shadows over the sharp volcanic peaks. Kira woke up to the soft hum of life around her and the warmth that Lyric was giving off as she curled protectively around the newly hatched dragons. Orion was lying a short distance away, alert even while he was resting. His eyes moved with a precision that was almost supernatural toward every movement in the valley. Kira felt a mix of awe and responsibility in her heart. Yes, she had seen eggs hatch before, but not like this. These dragons weren't kept in cages and raised in controlled environments. They were wild, aware, and very smart. They were already learning from their parents' instincts and social behaviors. She was a part of it, a living link between their world and hers. "Morning, everyone," Dr. Zhang said quietly as he crouched down next to Kira. Her tablet showed early data from monitoring done overnight. After the first appearance, their heart rates quickly stabilized. "That's amazing. It takes captive dragons longer to get used to life after they hatch." Kira nodded and looked at the babies. The copper and gold male was already stretching his tiny wings in preparation for his first attempts at flight. The indigo female was sitting on a heated stone, blinking in the morning light. The green male crawled toward Lyric, looking for warmth and comfort. His tiny claws dug into her scaly skin. "They're learning," Kira said softly. "Not just living, but also talking, watching, and processing." "It's amazing," Jackson, who had been quietly checking the sensors around the edge, suddenly stood up. "We're moving, and picking up signs of heat coming from the northern pass. Not wild animals because they are too organized. Maybe it's the bounty hunters you felt yesterday." Kira felt a wave of stress rise up through her chest. She thought, "Already?" As she sent calm thoughts to Lyric and Orion. "Stay calm, have faith in the bond." The dragons answered right away. Lyric's tail swept over the eggs as a warning, and Orion's wings flexed, his muscles getting ready to move. "Everyone, get close to the outer ridge," Kira said. "We're not letting anyone into the nest. Not today." The team moved quickly to set up a perimeter without scaring the dragons. Officer Rock crouched next to Kira and looked around at the rough ground. "They're trained," he said quietly. "Whatever this is, they know what they want, and they're ready to put their lives on the line for it." Kira said, They want the hatchlings, her voice tight. That's clear, but we will give them something else. Resistance. As the sun rose higher, the first attackers came down from the northern ridge. For people in dark exosuits, with non-lethal weapons, moved forward slowly. But when Kira saw the faint glint of containment nets made for creatures bigger than any wild animal they had ever studied, her heart sank. Jackson said, "They'll try to catch them quickly. Maybe they thought they could scare Lyric into giving up." Kira stepped forward, sending out a strong wave of calm and power. "Get away! Get out of here! I am protecting these young dragons." Lyric and Orion answered right away. Lyric let out a low, vibrating hum that shook Kira's chest. Orion's roar echoed across the valley, making small rocks fall down the cliffs. The attackers stopped in their tracks because they were so shocked by how strong the dragons were. Even through the bond, Kira could feel their fear. It was clear that these were not normal creatures. She told the team to stay calm, let the bond do its job. If they know the dragons are aware and ready, they will hesitate. The attackers moved forward carefully again, but this time Orion took the lead. He made a strong gust by beating his wings hard, which made the first two operators lose their balance on the unstable volcanic stones and fall back. Lyric followed with a controlled sweep of her tail that made a small shockwave that made the attackers think twice about how they were going to attack. Officer Rock said in a low voice, "They're testing our resolve. If we don't do well, they'll push harder." Kira felt the weight of her duty on her shoulders, like the heat from the vents below. We can't give up, not right now, never. She sent her thoughts out into the world, creating a web of trust and authority that linked her team and the dragons. We are protectors. You can't claim these young people. Get out, or else. The attackers hesitated again, but the leader, who was tall, sure of himself, and heavily armored, stepped forward. He yelled through his suit, "We have permission to get the hatchlings. Get out of the way." Kira stepped forward, hands up, but not moving. "You don't have any power here. These dragons are free, and their babies live in the wild. Leave now, or you'll have to deal with things you aren't ready for." For a moment, the leader's face changed, showing a hint of doubt. The dragons moved forward a little, and their wings and tails moved in perfect time, which made it seem like they were planning something. Kira felt the weight of hundreds of years of dragon instinct in her chest. Protection, dominance, and an unbreakable will. The indigo hatchling suddenly chirped and rolled toward Kira. It was small and weak, but it was very aware. Lyric gave it a gentle push, which strengthened their bond. The leader froze again when he realized how deeply connected and coordinated people and dragons were. One of the attackers said, "Maybe we didn't give them enough credit." Kira took advantage of the situation. "This is your last chance. You will regret testing me if you leave. If you stay, you could get hurt or worse. These dragons trust me, and I will keep them safe." The valley was quiet, except for the hissing of volcanic vents and the soft chirping of the hatchlings. Then, slowly and on purpose, the attackers pulled back, dragging their gear with them. Kira took a shallow breath, but her body stayed tense and ready for anything that might happen. Officer Rock said carefully, "They've pulled back, for now, but they'll come back." Kira nodded. "I know, but this was more than just defense. We showed them what happens when you don't take the bond between humans and dragons seriously. And we gave these kids more time." Hours went by as they watched carefully. Lyric watched as the hatchlings explored their surroundings. They tested their wings, tried to climb rough rocks, and played with each other in ways that were similar to how their parents worked together. Kira and her team wrote down everything, gathering information that would change how we think about dragon intelligence, social behavior, and survival instincts in the wild. Dr. Zhang wrote down every little thing, her voice low as she noted body language, vocalizations, and behavioral cues. She said, "The cooperative teaching we're seeing, it's never happened before. Lyric and Orion aren't just keeping their young safe, they're also teaching them, guiding their instincts, and shaping social behaviors that could become the new norm for Paradisian dragons." Kira felt a rush of pride, but it was tempered by the threat from outside. These dragons had changed, adapted, and learned in ways that no human could have planned. They were free, smart, and very capable, and she had helped them stay alive. As the sun set, Paradiso's two suns cast a soft orange light over the valley. Kira took a moment to connect with Lyric and Orion. You did a good job. They are safe, doing well, and learning. I promise to keep them safe." Lyric hummed in agreement, and a wave of warmth passed through the bond. Orion's eyes met hers. He was alert but happy, and his heartbeat was steady and sure. "We need a plan for the long term," Kira said quietly to her team. "The Federation won't give up, bounty hunters or private operators. They'll keep coming. We need to be ready, flexible, and safe. Not just today, but for many years to come." Jackson nodded and started to think about where to put the sensors and how to keep an eye on them. Officer Rock's hand was on the hilt of a weapon for protection, and his eyes were scanning the area. Dr. Jang thought about what to do with her tablet. "We'll need to fully map the terrain, find hidden vantage points, and set up a network of observation that doesn't get in the way of the dragon's freedom." Kira smiled a little. "Good, let's do it now. Guardians of the Hatching is a title I can live with." As night fell, the dragons next to her moved. Lyric wrapped her wings around the hatchlings to keep them safe, and Orion walked around the outside with his full attention. Kira could feel the bond between them growing stronger. It was a lifeline of trust, respect, and understanding. They had found safety here, in the middle of the Obsidian Range, and they would protect it together. Stars shone over the volcanic peaks, and the soft sounds of new life mixed with the quiet hiss of thermal vents. Kira touched her pendant and felt the dragon's presence. She knew she wasn't just watching, she was a protector, a bridge between human curiosity and dragon freedom. Federation forces would surely keep testing them tomorrow, but tonight they had one. The hatchlings were safe tonight. The bond was stronger, and the Obsidian Range had taken its guardians. At that moment, Kira knew that this was more than just a job. It was a promise that dragons and humans would protect life that was too valuable to control, too smart to ignore, and too free to be caged. The Firefly flew silently through the thin air above Paradiso. Staying close to the dark valleys of the Obsidian Range, Kira's hands were lightly resting on the controls. Even though she didn't need them, she could feel Lyric's heart beating in the pendant against her chest. She could also feel the dragon's steady rhythm through the bond they had built over years of trust. Orion was always there, watching and aware, like a guardian who could read her mind almost as well as she could read his. The jagged peaks of black volcanic stone stuck out of the ground below them, and thermal vents sent clouds of steam into the cool air. This was the perfect place for dragons to live. It was far away, had a lot of minerals, and was hard to scan or monitor with regular Federation equipment. Kira let out a slow breath, giving herself a moment of relief. The eggs were safe for now. Jackson, who was sitting in the co-pilot's seat, said sensors show little Federation tracking in the area. The Obsidian Range gets in the way of long-range scans, so they might have seen us leave. We have a chance. Good, Kira said. She didn't look back at the small container where the eggs were resting in specially made support nests. We need more than just safety. We need room. They need to be able to hatch without worrying about being disturbed. Lyric spread her wings, and Kira felt a wave of warmth in her chest as the dragon's confidence matched her own. Orion's eyes shone as he looked out over the horizon for any sign of danger. The dragons and Kira made up a three-way relationship of instinct, intelligence, and understanding that no human technology could match. They first landed in a narrow valley between two huge peaks. Steam vents gave off natural heat, which was great for hatching eggs, and jagged stone formations gave people places to hide and see things. Kira told the team to set up temporary monitoring equipment, but only far enough away that it wouldn't bother the dragons. The main goal was to watch, not to get involved. At first, the dragons were on edge, but they soon calmed down. Lyric carefully put the eggs in a shallow nest of warm stones and curled around them to keep them safe. Orion stayed near the valley's entrance, his muscles tense but calm, and his wings partially spread out in a defensive position. Kira walked up carefully, remembering the bond she had built. She whispered, "You're doing well," and her voice was louder for Lyric and Orion than for the humans. They can tell you care. They trust you not to betray them. Lyric's thought responded through the bond, "We trust you. This is our family. Keep it safe." Kira felt a shiver of determination. It wasn't just about saving these eggs for research or conservation. It was also about keeping trust and protecting life that couldn't protect itself from human greed or mistakes. Hours went by in a careful routine. Dr. Jang wrote down everything she could see from a distance, including the weather, how the dragons acted, and small interactions that might show early signs of socialization. Jackson set the sensors to blend in with the surroundings so that they wouldn't get in the way too much. At the same time, Officer Rock looked around the edges for any sign of Federation pursuit. And then, out of nowhere, Kira felt a strange, sharp vibration in her mind that wouldn't go away. "They're coming." She stopped moving. "Something's coming," she said quietly, looking out over the peaks. Lyric and Orion both stiffened at the same time, and the bond pulsed with tension. The baby dragons inside the eggs reacted, sending out small waves of energy as if they could sense danger before they even hatched. "Federation?" Dr. Jang asked, her voice tense. Kira shook her head. "Even worse. A bounty team. People who run businesses on their own. They must have heard how valuable the eggs were. They will try to get them before we can fully protect them." Orion made a low rumble and moved his wings, while Lyric's scales shone in warning. Kira could sense the dragon's fear and need to protect themselves, so she knew she had to move quickly. "Everyone, get your things together." She told us to move. "Lyric and Orion will take us to a second nesting site higher up in the mountains. Stay quiet and stay alert." The team worked quickly, but the tension in the air made every sound seem too loud. Kira used the bond to spread her awareness and send calm reassurance to the dragons. "We all go together. Now, trust." Lyric spread her wings and flew lightly into the air, even though the eggs were heavy against her chest. Orion came next, patrolling the area around them to keep them safe from possible aerial observation. Kira and her team walked behind, climbing rough stone paths and crossing narrow ridges. Following the dragon's lead through small movements and mental nudges, it took hours. The obsidian range was harsh. Cliffs fell into dark chasms. Volcanic rock threatened to break underfoot, and clouds of steam made it hard to see. Lyric and Orion, on the other hand, moved with complete confidence through terrain that would have left people stranded or hurt. Their children, still inside but fully aware of the bond, reacted to Lyric's protective energy, their minds flickering in time with her guidance. Finally, as night fell, the team reached a high plateau that was hidden from view by tall stone spires on all sides. Hot vents and natural pools of water with a lot of minerals made the perfect microclimate for hatching. Kira led Lyric to the middle, where the dragon carefully placed the eggs in a shallow nest of warm stones. Orion spread his wings along the outside edge, making a living wall of protection. Kira whispered, "They're safe." For now, giving herself a rare moment of relief, Dr. Jang whispered, almost in awe, "Look at them, ... They're planning and strategizing. They get it. It's not just instinct. It's smart." Kira nodded, feeling the same truth inside of her. They are related, and they know we are on the same side. The heat from the vents and Lyric's body made the eggs start to hatch, and the first cracks appeared. Kira felt the flashes of awareness, 3 bright sparks that looked like little stars coming into being. Lyric hummed softly to get the hatchlings to come out, and Orion kept an eye out for predators or intruders. The eggs broke one by one. The first baby bird, a deep indigo with shiny silver streaks, came out slowly and blinked at the light from the volcanic vents. Lyric gently pushed it, teaching it to respond and trust the warmth and safety of the nest. The second, a male made of copper and gold, fell out with a lot of energy and immediately started exploring the edges with a confidence that is unusual for a newborn. The third one, which was smaller and more fragile and had translucent emerald scales, came out last and instinctively crawled toward Lyric for warmth. Kira's heart raced. She had seen dragons hatch before, in controlled settings, but never like this free, wild, and already showing signs of intelligence from parents who had been around people. This was a huge step forward, a big change, and very moving. Jackson said, They're perfect, each one showing different traits, ... awareness, and even curiosity." Kira knelt down and reached out to the nearest hatchling, feeling the faint pulse of its mind. "You are safe. You fit in here." The little dragon chirped, which is a sign of protection and trust. Lyric and Orion moved a little to show that they understood Kira's connection. Lyric said, "You have honored our bond. We live together." Night fell completely, and the obsidian range turned into a safe place with warm mineral light and moving shadows. Kira and her team set up monitoring equipment far away so they wouldn't bother the hatchlings. They recorded the hatchlings' first movements, how they interacted with each other, and the early lessons of survival that parents passed down to their young. Kira said softly, almost to herself, "This is what conservation should look like, not cages, not holding, but faith, safety, and freedom." Orion let out a low, happy call that was echoed by Lyric's softer hums. Kira could feel the vibrations in her chest. They were a sign of victory, yes, but also of ongoing duty. The Federation, bounty hunters, and anyone else who wanted power would not give up easily. But here, in the middle of the Obsidian Range, life had won. Kira ran her fingers over her pendant, feeling how smooth it was against her skin. This connection, this trust, goes beyond just keeping you safe. It's a way to connect to worlds. The night got darker. Stars twinkled over the volcanic peaks, and their light bounced off the mineral-rich surfaces. Kira looked up, her mind racing with plans, strategies, and the unspoken promise to Lyric, Orion, and their children. She would protect them, build their trust, and make sure they stayed free. Kira felt something she'd never felt before in the quiet of the plateau, a deep connection not only to dragons, but also to the wild, untamed life of Paradiso itself. The Obsidian Range was quiet, but it was still fragile. In the morning light, the volcanic spires sparkled, throwing jagged shadows across the blackened slopes. Kira, her team, and the dragons had been working for the past week to set up a network of secret observation points, hidden sensors, and emergency escape routes for the hatchlings. Every ridge, cave, and thermal vent was carefully listed. Kira knew their victory was only temporary, even as she worked. Officer Rock warned them in a low voice as they walked along a narrow ridge that looked out over the main valley. "The Federation won't stay away forever. They've already seen what we can do. Next time, they'll be ready." Kira nodded and looked around at the horizon. The hatchlings were already trying out their new wings by hopping and flapping under Lyric's watchful eye. Orion flew around in circles above them, and every beat of his wings was a silent warning to the world. This was their territory, and it would not be crossed. Kira said firmly, "We're ready, and we'll be ready if they come back." Today is about watching, writing down what you see, and letting them grow without bothering them. Later, we'll get ready for tomorrow. Dr. Jang crouched down next to a small group of rocks and wrote down what the hatchlings did. She said softly, "Their cooperative behavior is getting better quickly. They're already copying how their parents do. Things check out the blue one, the female. She is pushing her brother to safer ground. Yes, it's instinctive, but it's clear that Lyric taught it to him." Kira felt a rush of pride and relief. Her father had always thought that the dragons could thrive, learn, and change, and they were doing just that. The work she had done keeping the eggs safe, helping the young, and keeping the bond strong was more than just science. It was preservation, advocacy, and a promise to freedom. Jackson's tablet suddenly beeped loudly. Heat signatures. Moving quickly, Southridge. More than one reading, not animals in the wild. Kira's chest felt tight. How many? Too many to count exactly. At least 12, but maybe more. And they worked together. Her thoughts were racing. Someone, either the Federation or someone else, was coming. They wouldn't underestimate the bond between people and dragons this time. But Kira didn't let herself get scared. We keep them safe. We change. That's what guardians do. She sent through the bond, Lyric, Orion. Stay alert. There is a threat coming, but we will deal with it together. Both dragons answered right away. Lyric's tail moved like a whip, sending a warning through the rocks. Orion's wings moved, making the air move with a steady beat of excitement. The baby birds chirped and moved closer to their parents. "Looking for safety and help, Officer." Rock knelt down next to Kira. "We need to get them to leave without getting violent. The last time was a good enough warning. But if they attack directly..." His voice faded away. Kira nodded. "We'll make them retreat, and they won't have a choice. Have faith in the bond and the dragons. Everyone, stay where you are and stay calm." The first attackers reached the top of the ridge, moving with purpose and accuracy. But this time Kira saw something different. They were wearing suits that made their senses better, which were meant to hide their natural camouflage and thermal signatures. Their containment devices shone in the sun, and they were much better than before. Jackson said quietly, "They're serious. They've brought technology that will break through dragon defenses." Kira, was suddenly very scared. But not for herself. She was scared for the hatchlings. The stakes had gone up. We can't fail. She thought about the bond and wove her thoughts into a web of calm, confidence, and clarity. Don't freak out. Keep them safe. Show how strong you are, Lyric answered first with a low rumble that shook the rocks below. Orion flew high above the volcanic spires, casting a shadow on them. His wings were wide, strong, and commanding. The attackers stopped moving because their sensors picked up on how big the dragons were. Kira stepped forward with her hands up. Stop. You don't belong here. These dragons are not in jail. Leave now, or you'll have to deal with things you can't control. The attackers stopped for a moment, but the leader, who was tall and wore armor, moved forward with a steady pace. He yelled, "This is an official operation. These samples are very important for Federation research. Get out of the way." Kira felt the heavy weight of her duty, but she wouldn't give in. Not today. Never. She used every bit of power she had, every thread of the bond between humans and dragons, and a wave of unity spread through the valley. Lyric and Orion did the same thing she did. Moving in time with her and keeping their eyes on the intruders, the first few attackers tried to move forward. A sudden gust of wind from Orion's wings knocked them off balance, and Lyran's tail sweep made a small shockwave that made them take cover. The other operators stopped moving because they were scared by how smart and coordinated the dragons and their human allies were. "Do you know what this means?" Kira yelled, and her voice carried over the rocks. "You aren't dealing with animals that need to be caught. You are dealing with intelligent beings that can plan, learn, and defend themselves without thinking. You will live if you leave now. If you stay, you could get hurt and start a war you can't control." The ridge was quiet for a tense moment, except for the sound of vents hissing and the chirping of baby birds in the distance. Then, slowly and on purpose, the attackers started to pull back, moving carefully and in sync as they crossed the ridge. Kira let out a breath, but her body stayed tense. Officer Rock said, "They won't give up, they'll be back, and they'll be stronger." Kira said, "I know, but we've made our point. The dragons also learned something. They now know that they can get rid of threats without putting their own safety at risk. They are smart, capable, and able to change. That is the best way to keep them safe." As the attackers faded from view, Lyric carefully picked up the hatchlings and wrapped them in her arms like a living shield. Orion landed next to her, wrapping his tail around both mother and child to protect them. Kira walked up slowly and put her hand on Lyric's scaled shoulder. "We did it." Altogether, Dr. Jang recorded the moment without saying a word, her voice quiet in respect. The cooperative defense, the teaching, the awareness. It's a kind of social intelligence we've never seen in wild dragons before. Kira smiled, feeling both the weight of responsibility and deep happiness. They're more than anyone thought they would be. And they will do well, not because we control them, but because we trust them and let them be free. Kira and her team kept an eye on the dragon's behavior for the next few days. They wrote down the hatchlings' first coordinated flights, how they interacted with the thermal vents, and their first attempts to hunt small prey with the help of Lyric and Orion. Every observation confirmed what Kira had long thought. Dragons could form complex social structures, learn, and even pass down cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. The Obsidian Range became a safe haven, carefully mapped and protected, where dragons could grow up without being bothered by people, but still under the watchful eyes of guardians who respected their freedom. Kira and her team set up a way to keep an eye on the dragons in the future by watching them from a distance, tracking them without touching them, and quickly responding to outside threats, all while letting the dragons act naturally. Kira sat with Lyric and Orion on a high cliff one night, looking out over the valley below. The twin suns were setting, making the volcanic peaks look deep indigo. The baby birds flew around them, testing the tips of their new wings. "You've grown up so fast," Kira said softly, sending her thoughts to the dragons. "You're safe. You are free. And you are learning, just like nature wanted you to." Lyric rumbled softly, a deep, resonant sound that shook the rocks, and Orion's wings moved in happiness. Kira could feel the deep connection between their species, which included trust, respect, and understanding. At that moment, she understood what conservation really meant. It wasn't just study or protection. It was partnership. The people who chose to interact with the dragons had to take on the responsibility of giving them freedom, and the obsidian range, which was jagged and beautiful, volcanic and alive, would stay safe because they had promised to protect it. Later that night, Kira sat in her tent and looked over the data from the day. A soft chirp from outside told her that the hatchlings were exploring near the base camp, where they were safe and playful under Lyric's watchful eye. She smiled and traced the pendant around her neck. It was a reminder of the bond that connected people and dragons and gave them freedom. There was a crackle on her comling. It was her father who spoke softly but with pride. "I've sent the data to the Federation Science Council. People are upset with what Dr. Powell did, but your findings are being praised as groundbreaking. But the most important thing is that the Council has accepted your rules. It is now okay to use a hands-off, non-invasive approach. They know that the best thing we can do for these animals is give them freedom." Kira let out a sigh of relief. "Then we did it," she said in a low voice. "Not just for them, but for all the dragons on Paradiso." The pendant sparkled in the soft light of the moon, which was in tune with Lyric, Orion, and the hatchlings. Kira knew that the road ahead would be hard. The Federation might give them another test. Poachers or private operators could always be a danger. But for now, the dragons were safe, and the legacy of freedom had begun. Kira got up and went outside as the night got darker. The obsidian range lay in front of her, with jagged peaks standing out against the sky full of stars. Orion flew high above, with his wings spread wide and his tail flicking with joy. Lyric followed, carrying the hatchlings as tiny specks of color against the volcanic stone. Kira raised her hand in a quiet salute. "Protectors of freedom, guardians of life. No matter what it costs, we will keep protecting, watching over, and honoring this bond." The dragon's calls echoed through the stillness of the mountains. It was a song of survival, trust, and the unbroken will of life that was meant to soar across the world, free of chains. This was the start of a new time, for Kira, for the dragons, and for everyone else who deserved to be free. They had built a bridge between worlds, and the memory of that bond would live on in Paradiso for many years to come.